You probably know the feeling. Payday hits, and for a brief moment, your financial life looks almost respectable. Your account balance rises. The pressure in your chest softens. You tell yourself that this month will be different. This month you will stay ahead. This month you will finally feel the stability your salary is supposed to provide. And then, somehow, faster than seems mathematically possible, it begins to vanish. Rent, payments, food, transfers, convenience, a few ordinary purchases, a few things you barely remember buying. A week later, the number that looked strong now looks exposed. 2 weeks later, it looks tired. By the end of the month, your salary feels less like income and more like water poured into hot sand. Most people explain this in the most obvious way possible. Prices are too high. The economy is broken. Housing is insane. Groceries are ridiculous. Everything costs more than it used to. And to be fair, some of that is true. Modern life is expensive in ways that are deeply real. But that explanation, while comforting, often hides the part that matters most. Because if your salary disappears so fast every single month, the issue usually isn't just inflation, bad luck, or one giant expense. The real answer is more uncomfortable than that. Your money is not disappearing randomly. It is being absorbed by a system you built, accepted, and stopped questioning. That system doesn't look dramatic from the outside. It does not require luxury handbags, private schools, business class flights, or champagne habits. It can happen in a completely ordinary life. A decent apartment. A car payment that seemed reasonable. Food that feels deserved. Digital subscriptions that barely register. Small conveniences purchased because you're busy, tired, or emotionally thin. Upgrades so modest they seem harmless. None of it looks reckless. That is what makes it dangerous. Your salary usually doesn't disappear because you're doing one obviously stupid thing. It disappears because modern life has trained you to normalize 1,000 little drains that each seem too small to matter. Let me give you a clearer picture. Imagine two people earning roughly the same amount in the same city. Same age range. Same cost of living. Same complaints about prices. One of them feels like money evaporates every month. The other feels like money moves with intention. They both pay rent. They both buy groceries. They both have phones, transportation, social lives, and occasional treats. But one person experiences their salary as something that constantly escapes them, while the other experiences salary as something they direct. The difference is not usually discipline in the cartoon sense. It is not saint-like self-control. It is structure. One life is full of passive financial leaks. The other has far fewer places for money to disappear without permission. That word matters. Permission. Most salaries disappear quickly because too much of your money leaves before it meets any real resistance. You don't decide fresh each month whether these costs deserve to stay. You inherited them from your past self. The apartment chosen during optimism. The subscription started during curiosity. The payment justified during ambition. The convenience adopted during burnout. The delivery habit formed during a stressful season. The nicer version of something you upgraded because the previous version suddenly felt beneath you. These choices don't keep asking to be approved. They simply remain. That is how money drains the fastest, through decisions you no longer experience as decisions. When people say, "I don't know where my money goes," what they usually mean is something more precise. They know the categories. They just haven't felt the pattern. They know they spend on food, transport, rent, bills, subscriptions, and little extras. But they haven't stepped back far enough to see that their salary is being consumed by an ecosystem. Every financial choice in your life is connected to other choices. A more expensive apartment usually demands more furniture, more maintenance, more pressure to keep the rest of your life visually aligned with it. A nicer car doesn't just cost the payment. It carries insurance, repairs, identity, and the emotional standard of being someone who drives that car. A salary doesn't disappear because of isolated purchases. It disappears because you built a life with too many mouths to feed. This is why income often feels strangely powerless. People imagine that once they earn more, the feeling will change. The pressure will ease. The account balance will stay fuller for longer. The anxiety will stop following them into quiet moments. But for many people, higher income changes almost nothing. The salary rises, then vanishes at a slightly higher price point. Better apartment. Better takeout. Better travel. Better clothes. Better digital life. Better social spending. Better everything except actual peace. You look more stable maybe. You look more current. You look more upgraded. But your salary still disappears fast because the real issue was never the number itself. It was the habit of expanding life to consume whatever number arrived. The first thing absorbing your salary is fixed cost gravity. Fixed costs are powerful because once they're installed, they stop feeling expensive and start feeling normal. That's when they become dangerous. A high fixed cost life creates a monthly pull on your income before you even begin living. By the time your paycheck lands, it has already been mentally divided. Rent or mortgage, car, insurance, debt, internet, phone, storage, memberships, maybe childcare, maybe family obligations, maybe a dozen little monthly charges you agreed to because each one felt manageable on its own. The result is that your salary enters the month already wounded. You are not spending from abundance. You are operating from the leftovers of commitments. The second thing absorbing your salary is convenience dependency. This one hides behind exhaustion. You are busy. You work hard. You are mentally overloaded. You don't want to think after a long day. So you pay to remove friction. Delivery instead of cooking. Rides instead of planning. Last-minute purchases instead of deliberate ones. Premium because it's easier. Faster because you're tired. What makes convenience expensive is not one use. It is repeated use during an emotionally depleted state. If your tiredness consistently turns into spending, then your salary is not only funding your life. It is funding your inability to recover from your life without paying for help every few hours. The third thing absorbing your salary is emotional spending that doesn't look emotional. Not all emotional spending looks chaotic or impulsive. Sometimes it looks polished, controlled, adult. You buy because you feel behind. You upgrade because you feel overdue for improvement. You spend more socially because you don't want your life to feel small. You buy something better because your current version now feels slightly embarrassing. You reward yourself because work has taken too much from you. You say yes because saying no makes you feel constrained. None of this feels like emotional spending in the moment. It feels justified. But if your purchases are constantly helping you regulate stress, status, disappointment, boredom, or fatigue, then your salary is disappearing into feelings long before it ever becomes wealth. The fourth thing absorbing your salary is invisibility. Large expenses are easy to fear. Small repeated expenses are easy to excuse. That is why tiny leaks are often more destructive than dramatic purchases. Your streaming services, your creator subscriptions, your premium apps, your digital storage, your food delivery fees, your convenience add-ons, your weekly small resets, your casual online shopping, your little things. Little things are devastating when they are invisible enough to continue unquestioned. Salaries disappear fastest in environments where spending has become frictionless. Tap, confirm, done. The money leaves so smoothly that your mind barely records a loss. By the end of the month, your statement tells a story your memory never fully witnessed. The fifth thing absorbing your salary is identity maintenance. This one is especially costly because it rarely feels financial. It feels personal. You are not just spending on clothes, grooming, restaurants, devices, or apartment details. You are spending to maintain the version of yourself you've become attached to. The competent version. The successful version. The well-traveled version. The person with taste. The person who doesn't downgrade. The person who is progressing. Identity is expensive when it must be performed externally every month. And the more public your identity becomes, the more salary it requires to keep the performance running. That is why some people earn decent money and still feel poor. They are not merely living. They are funding a brand. This is also why your salary can disappear even if you are not doing anything outrageous. Outrage is not required. All that is required is a life where every emotional state has a financial outlet. Stressed? Spend for relief. Tired? Spend for convenience. Lonely? Spend for stimulation. Bored? Spend for novelty. Insecure? Spend for image. Overworked? Spend because you deserve it. Underwhelmed? Spend because life should feel better than this. If money is repeatedly used to alter your inner state, your salary will always leave faster than logic says it should. You will not just be paying for things. You will be paying for emotional adjustment. There is another reason the money goes so fast, and it is subtler. You may be measuring affordability instead of impact. Most people ask, can I afford this? That question sounds responsible, but it is often too weak to protect you. You can technically afford many things that still damage your financial life. You can afford the monthly payment. You can afford the upgraded version. You can afford the trip if you shift some things around. You can afford to keep the subscriptions because none of them are individually large. But affordability is a shallow test. The better question is, what does this do to my margin? Not your image, not your mood, your margin, your breathing room, your ability to survive a bad month, a bad quarter, a bad surprise, or a bad season. Margin is what most people are really missing when they say their salary disappears too fast. They don't necessarily mean they literally spend every last cent. They mean that what remains doesn't feel powerful enough to change anything. It doesn't feel like safety. It doesn't feel like control. It doesn't feel like a future. A few hundred left over is not the same as financial relief if your life is expensive enough to consume it instantly. This is the cruel math of low margin. Even small setbacks feel huge when the gap between what you earn and what your life requires is too narrow. Your salary feels temporary because it is constantly being dragged back into maintenance. Maintenance is one of the best words for what's happening. You think you're earning to move forward. But much of your money is spent maintaining your current life position. Maintaining the apartment. Maintaining the car. Maintaining the routines. Maintaining the conveniences. Maintaining the image. Maintaining the expectations you accidentally built around yourself. Once life becomes maintenance heavy, salary stops feeling like possibility. It starts feeling like fuel. And fuel is never enough when the machine is too hungry. If you want to feel the truth of this, look at your paycheck not as a number but as hours of your life. Then ask where those hours go. How many hours buy your housing? How many buy your commute? How many buy your food habits? How many buy your phone, your subscriptions, your debt, your social spending, your convenience, your image? Suddenly, your salary stops looking like a clean, abstract monthly figure and starts looking like sliced pieces of your existence scattered across obligations. This is where a lot of people wake up. Because, I can afford it, sounds very different from, I traded 7 hours of my life this week to maintain this one category. Another reason salary disappears fast is that many people are living in delayed reaction mode. They are not making money decisions from calm. They are making them from fatigue, backlog, urgency, and emotional residue. They are too busy to compare. Too tired to plan. Too depleted to cook. Too overwhelmed to track. Too distracted to cancel. Too mentally full to create systems. So spending becomes reactive. Reactive spending is expensive not because each decision is catastrophic, but because reaction has no architecture. It solves the next few minutes. It rarely protects the next few years. This is why organized people often keep more of their salary than equally disciplined people. Organization is not glamorous, but it reduces expensive chaos. When your week is disorganized, money gets used to compensate. You order instead of preparing. You forget instead of anticipating. You pay late. You pay more. You buy duplicates because you can't find what you already own. You spend for speed because your life has too little slack. In that sense, disappearing salary is not always only a money problem. Sometimes it is a systems problem, a clutter problem, a planning problem, a recovery problem, a life design problem disguised as financial stress. There is also the issue of social calibration. Salaries disappear faster in environments where expensive behavior feels normal. If the people around you normalize constant brunches, upgraded apartments, financed cars, polished travel, wardrobe churn, and soft luxury as ordinary adult life, then your spending threshold quietly shifts. You stop asking whether something strengthens you. You ask whether it feels standard. And once expensive becomes standard, your salary will always feel weak compared to the life you're trying to keep up with. Comparison doesn't just affect your emotions. It alters your idea of what money is for. The most dangerous phrase in modern personal finance may be, "It's just part of life." Because that phrase shuts down inquiry. It turns financial choices into background scenery. But many of the costs draining you are not laws of nature. They are habits you normalized. Services you got used to. Standards you inherited. Speeds you became dependent on. Purchases you started calling necessities because imagining life without them now feels like regression. That is how salary disappears quickly, not only through high costs, but through costs that became invisible because they fused with identity and routine. So what actually changes this? Not guilt. Not one dramatic no-spend month. Not pretending you can become a monk overnight. The solution starts with visibility. You need to see the machine. Print out your last 3 months of spending or lay them out clearly. Then stop categorizing them in the usual shallow way. Don't just say food, transport, lifestyle, utilities. Categorize by function. What bought actual value? What bought convenience because you were tired? What bought relief because you were stressed? What bought image? What bought avoidance? What bought speed because your systems were weak? What bought identity maintenance? Once you do that, your salary will stop looking mysterious. Its disappearance will begin to look mechanical. Then ask a harder question. Which of these costs would still exist if your life were calmer, simpler, and better designed? That question is powerful because it reveals how much spending is compensatory. A lot of people think they have an income problem when they really have a life friction problem. Their days are too chaotic, so money rushes in to patch the chaos. Their home is too disorganized, so money buys convenience. Their body is too exhausted, so money buys relief. Their self-image is too externally anchored, so money buys performance. Their social environment pressures them, so money buys belonging. Once you see your spending as compensation, you stop treating it like fate. If you want your salary to stop disappearing so fast, fixed costs are the first battlefield. They matter more than the little things because they shape every month before it begins. High fixed costs create chronic vulnerability. Even if you are managing inside a structure that leaves too little room to recover, invest, or breathe. Lowering fixed costs is not glamorous, and sometimes it is not immediately possible, but nothing changes your financial life faster than reducing the size of the machine you must feed every month. It is difficult to feel rich when your life has been engineered to consume almost everything you make. After fixed costs comes friction. Modern spending is too smooth. If you want to keep more of your salary, you need to make spending slightly harder and saving slightly easier. Remove saved payment details. Delete shopping apps you use when bored. Put a waiting period between desire and purchase. Automate transfers on payday before your brain starts negotiating. Keep less money in the account connected to impulse. These changes sound minor, but minor structural changes beat emotional promises almost every time. Because the version of you making great financial vows is rarely the same version of you scrolling late at night after a draining day. The next shift is emotional honesty. You have to learn what your spending is trying to do for you. Is it giving you relief? Control? Stimulation? Reward? Identity? A sense of progression? A sense that your life is not as small or exhausting as it feels. Until you answer that, budget cuts will always feel random and painful, because you will be removing more than purchases. You will be removing coping mechanisms. Once you understand the emotional job your spending performs, you can start replacing the function instead of only fighting the transaction. You also need a new definition of progress. Many people think progress means living better right away every time income rises. But that is often just costlier maintenance wearing the costume of success. Real progress is when your salary creates stronger structure before it creates a nicer surface. Bigger emergency fund. Lower debt. More investing. More optionality. More room to breathe. More ability to survive bad timing. More power to say no. If your salary improves your appearance before it improves your resilience, it will still disappear quickly because your life remains fragile underneath the polish. One of the clearest signs that you're winning financially is not that your life looks dramatically better. It is that surprises start feeling smaller. The account can absorb. The month doesn't instantly wobble. A bad day doesn't trigger a spending spiral. Your salary lasts longer not because you became perfect, but because fewer things in your life are designed to consume it on contact. That is what people miss. The goal isn't simply to spend less. The goal is to build a life where money has fewer places to leak without permission. There is a strange emotional grief in this process, because some of what drains your salary may be wrapped around your current self-image. You may have to admit that certain costs are not serving your future, only flattering your present. That can sting. It can feel like shrinking even when it is actually strengthening. But this is where financial adulthood begins. Not when you earn more. Not when you buy more. When you can tell the difference between what comforts your ego and what protects your freedom. The truth is that your salary disappears fast because money always obeys structure more than intention. You can intend to save. Intend to be better. Intend to stop wasting. Intend to get ahead. But if your structure is built to absorb income into fixed costs, convenience, invisible subscriptions, emotional relief, and identity maintenance, then intention alone will lose almost every month. You do not rise to your goals. You fall into your design. And if your design is expensive, your salary will continue to vanish while you keep blaming the same obvious explanations. But the opposite is also true. Change the structure and the same salary starts behaving differently. It stays visible longer. It lasts deeper into the month. It starts accumulating rather than evaporating. You feel less hunted by ordinary costs. You stop needing payday to rescue you emotionally. The account balance becomes less theatrical and more stable. And with that stability comes something people often mistake for wealth when they first feel it. Calm. Not abundance in the flashy sense. Calm. The quiet relief of knowing your money isn't constantly slipping away through 100 unexamined exits. So the next time your salary lands, don't ask only where it went. Ask what kind of life it entered. Ask how many monthly obligations were already waiting for it. Ask what feelings it had to manage. Ask what chaos it had to compensate for. Ask what identity it had to maintain. Ask what convenience it had to keep alive. Because when you answer those questions honestly, the mystery disappears. And once the mystery disappears, you can finally do something most people never do. Stop treating disappearing money like a curse and start treating it like a pattern. The good news is that patterns can be changed. Slowly, deliberately, intelligently. You do not need to fix everything this week. You need to identify the biggest leaks, reduce the hungriest obligations, increase friction around the most mindless drains, and define what actually matters before your environment defines it for you again. If this video helped you see your salary differently, subscribe and stay with me, because the difference between always feeling underpaid and finally feeling in control is often not income at all. It's whether you learn to stop feeding the system that was quietly eating it.